I hope you guys are having. I had to say that weird. Are having. I hope you guys are having a way cooler summer than the United States. June. I'm recording this on June 29th. The hottest month of the year here is August, and that's typical for the Northern Hemisphere. August tends to be the hottest month of the year, but June was brutal. I mean, heat indexes of over 100, with the actual heat being in the triple digits, high humidity where I am. There were days that where I live on the East Coast we were hotter than Texas. And I don't mind warm weather, but when you get to heat that is just suffocating and is actually dangerous to be in, you've got the heat advisories on, and when the advisories are telling you don't go outside unless you have to, stay indoors. Yeah. It's been brutal. We had a bit of a. It's so hot that it was so hot that 90 degrees started to feel cool. But anyway, I saw a quote. I might end up cutting some of this out. I saw a quote, and it was from a William. I'm eating my hair. It was a William Faulkner quote. He said, "If he could choose between grief or nothing, he'd pick grief." Playa. I'm picking nothing. Man, grief is a beast. Anyway, this video, I'm going to do an unhaul. So in a few videos back, multiple videos back, I mentioned that I was purging my shelves. You can see that some stuff has shifted. I have 2 whole shelves down here that have no books. I actually have staged it with books I'm pending for the rest of the year. And I have yarn down here for some upcoming knitting projects because we're halfway through the year and I'm trying to hand make as many Christmas gifts as possible this year. Excuse me. So, and I haven't been purchasing books. So with this unhaul, I haven't been replacing. As of this point, I have only purchased 4 books this year. And it will be 5 in August because there's a new release that's coming out for the only manga that I read. And only one volume is released a year. And I'm looking at it now on my shelf. That's released in August, and I'm going to snap that up and read it immediately. But other than that, and if you want to count, I've been sent 2 books from publishers. One of them I agreed to last year, but one I agreed to this year, and I'm not even really accepting books. But this book is an author I've already read before, and I really like Daphne Suman. Summer Heat. She has a release coming out. It might have already been published, but that I will read. So this summer. But I've been unhauling, and I still have books pending. These are my Alison Ware, The 6 Wives of Henry VI, pending. I have flipped them down. I don't know if I'm going to read the hard copies of these. I have flipped them down. So these are not going to be included in the unhaul because I don't know if I'm going to keep them or not. And I have 4 books over here. Pardon me. I just have some postnasal drip that I might unhaul. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, don't think if I'm going to be interested in picking that up again. Blueberries by Elena Savage. I feel like I've read it. I kept it on my shelf because I thought that it's experimental in some ways with her structure of her writing. But I don't know. Paul by Daisy Lafarge and The Turnout by Megan Abbott. All of those I have read. Jonathan Strange I DNF'd, but pending. I didn't introduce myself. Hi, my name is Alana. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, we review books. So this is an unhaul video. I will not be doing a haul video this year until probably the very end of the year. And it's going to be like the 5 little books that I purchased. And I'm doing that as I think that's going to be refreshing for people to see because, I've done it myself. I've been guilty of it myself, these massive hauls. And I'm just like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, why? Nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to do. But, for me, that's just not. I'm downsizing. So anyway, let's get into this. I'm going to fly through these books. In Love with George Eliot by Kathy O'Shaughnessy. Hold on. I know you guys have seen that Key and Peele skit, Substitute Teacher. Oshak Hennessy. Come on. Kathy Oshak Hennessy. Kathy O'Shaughnessy. Anyway, In Love with George Eliot. This is a historical fiction type book where you have a main character whose favorite author is George Eliot. Her most well-known Victorian novel is Middlemarch, which I have read and really, really liked. I should review George Eliot. It wouldn't be not George Eliot, Middlemarch. It wouldn't be a super in-depth review, but just enough, I think, to talk about. And that's why I purchased this book. I wanted to see how this author was going to tackle George Eliot, but this has been sitting on my shelf since like 2019 or 2020, pre-corona virus. And I just have not had any urge to pick this up. And I just don't feel inclined to read this. So I'm going to remove it from my shelf and donate it. It has been sitting there for that long. What you'll notice with these books, there's a trend. They're overwhelmingly historical fiction that's pretty lush. I mean, these aren't books that I would probably be annotating a whole lot and doing super in-depth reviews. And if I get the urge later in life to read these books at some point, this is where I think I would get a Kindle. I am not the biggest fan of Kindle, not that there's anything wrong with it. I just look at screens all day, Monday through Friday. I'm on a lot of screens because of work. And when I sit down to read, I don't want to look at another screen. I don't want to have to charge something, right? So I don't want something to hold something to read that needs to be charged. I just want to take a break from a screen. And I know that the Kindle screens, especially now, they're not straining on the eyes. It's not like looking at a computer screen or a phone screen. But if I choose to get a Kindle in the future, these are the types of stories that I would put on that Kindle so that I'm not taking up shelf space. Just quick reads that are fun to read, most of them. Just lush, you're reading for the pure enjoyment of reading and not really for these in-depth analyses. So anyway, this is a knitting book. It's sweater design in plain English. I have knitting in plain English, which is the precursor to this one. And there was one point in my knitting journey where I wanted to design my own sweaters. I don't really knit sweaters a whole lot. I have knitted very beautiful, complex cable knit sweaters, and it's fun in the challenge. But I don't knit sweaters a lot. The last time I knitted a sweater was in 2022. My favorite things to knit are hats. I love a simple knit in ribbing or stockinette stitch. Now I'm addicted. I finally have gotten over my fear of knitting socks. And the reason why I had a fear of knitting socks is because it's fiddly and all these DPNs. And I didn't understand what you meant by turning the heel. And it makes sense to me now. I sucked it up and got over myself. But socks are pretty straightforward. I'm just not going to design my own sweaters. Okay. And if this was not even expensive when I purchased it, I got this. It's like secondhand for a few dollars. I'm just not interested. And when I do want to knit, when I have knit sweaters, I've never referred to that book. I'm using somebody else's pattern. So sweater design is just not something I want to do. Like I said, I've kept my knitting in plain English because when it comes to things like, I do design my own hats, and so I don't knit hat patterns from other people's patterns anymore. I knit my own hats. And so when I want to do cable knitting, I want to add cables into a hat or something, I refer to that book to make sure that my math is right. Let's do these two books together. Ali Smith, Winter and Autumn. You can see I don't have spring and summer. I purchased these two books first, thinking that I was going to try Ali Smith, and I'm just not interested. I don't think Ali Smith is going to be for me. I don't have any urge to read her. Kieran, Katie Reed / Katie Books. Is there a fly in here? I will kill you later. Kieran here, I would say Kieran is pretty well known in the booktube community, and man, Kieran is so funny. He did a review on one of Ali Smith's books, and I said, I have her sitting on my shelf, and I'm not feeling it. He was like, we have pretty similar tastes. He has a good gauge on what he thinks I'm going to like, and I have a good gauge on what I think he's going to like when I do recommend the book to him. And he was like, Alana, don't do it. You're going to hate it. And so I trust his judgment. I was already feeling that way. I'm just not interested. I'm just not interested. So she's going to go. And if I really want to read it later, but the hand movements, if I really want to read her later, she's not going anywhere. But I want it off my shelves. Philippa Gregory. Okay, why am I so dramatic? The hair is long. My hair's gotten so long. Okay, Philippa Gregory. This is her Tudor series. This is the series that has the other Boleyn girl in it. Again, I went on a Tudor historical fiction buying craze in 2021. This I have not touched. And again, I read it. I picked these up because these are the types of stories that I was like, when I just want something that's lush and just probably not historically accurate, and you're reading it for the pure enjoyment of reading and just for the drama, that's why I purchased these, but I'm not interested. And then one of you guys commented and said the writing isn't good. And I can't with bad writing. So I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to read those. And if I really get the urge to read it later, these definitely aren't going anywhere. And again, these are stories minus the knitting book. I would put on a Kindle maybe later in life if I choose to do that. Stacey Hall's The Familiars, The Foundling. Again, historical fiction. I believe this is historical fiction, maybe with both of these, or maybe with a mystery type, or maybe a mystical or fantastical type element to it. And I forgot I even had these books. I found them in a box. And great covers, great spines, but I realized if I forget I have it and I didn't miss it, it has to go. I'm the same way with my clothing like that. If I find something and I'm like, I haven't worn this and I didn't miss it, it's got to go. I don't have a lot of clothes. My clothes are very curated. My wardrobe is very curated. But I recently went back through my wardrobe, my closet, and there was a shirt that had fallen off the hanger and that I didn't even know. And it was at the bottom. And I was like, I didn't even know I still had this shirt. It's got to go. If you come across something and you're like, I didn't even miss you. Items. I'm not talking about people. If you come across something like, I didn't even miss this item, get rid of it. You didn't need it. More Tudor historical fiction. The Brief Gaudy Hour. How do you guys say gaudy? That's Gaudy. Gaudy or gaudy? For me, it's gaudy. It's that AU it's got to be a diphthong there. The Brief Gaudy Hour. By Margaret Campbell Barnes. I believe this was actually written in the 40s or something, the 1940s. That's the reason why I picked it up. It was an Anne Boleyn story, and I knew it was going to have that 1940s drama. But I had this in a box somewhere, forgot I owned it. Gotta go. I have no intention of reading it. If it comes across my page, if it comes across my mind later and I want to read it, I'll put it on a Kindle. 2 Alison Ware books. Again, historical. This one is about Queen Elizabeth, I think. Yeah, but when she was Elizabeth Tudor, when she was a youngin'. This is a historical fiction about Queen Elizabeth, the daughter of Henry VIII. And this one is about, is it one of Henry VIII's wives Lady Jane Grey, again, Tudor England, just not interested. If I'm reading Tudor fiction these days, it's going to be Hilary Mantel. I still need to finish this series, by the way. The Heretic's Daughter by Kathleen Kent. I have read this, and I actually enjoyed it when I read it in 2015. This takes place in 1752, and I actually think a lot of people would like this book if you're interested in colonial U.S. historical fiction. This is historical fiction set during the Salem witch trials in New England. And so, as a lover of New England, born in New England, I enjoyed this. But I don't think, for me, it was one of those books that now that I've read it, I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. But I did enjoy it. I have a bag here. You guys, I have a bag. That was from an engineering conference. I'm not an engineer, but I ended up at an engineering conference. I work with engineers. Okay. Kate Morton. Oh, falling. Kate Morton, historical fiction again. She tends to do these parallel plots where you have the present or maybe something in the 2000s paralleled with something in the past, and somehow these two parallel stories and the characters weave. Somehow these stories intertwine. I have read The House at Riverton and enjoyed it. That was a COVID read for me. And I enjoyed it. It was fun to read. But after that, I never really felt interest. I briefly felt interested in continuing these. I have here The Distant Hours, The Forgotten Garden, and The Secret Keeper. Again, drama, but the covers are fun. But I'm not interested. Again, if I feel interested later in life, let me put these over here. You're going to get a Kindle. So I have one thing I'm not too interested in anymore in my collection is having multiple copies of the same book. There are a couple of stories and books that I have more than one copy of, and I'll keep them. Jane Eyre is one. I have 5 copies of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is my favorite book of all time, and I have a old antique leather-bound copy that was gifted to me by one of my best friends. She knows Jane Eyre is my favorite book. And it's not a book that you read and annotate its decoration. She was able to score this really old edition of Jane Eyre for me. And I have I know I have a couple other copies of some classics, multiple copies, but moving forward, I'm not purchasing more copies of if I already own it. I don't care how beautiful the cover is. Now, that being said, I have the Harvard Loeb Classic Library editions of the Odyssey and the Iliad, and they split both of these into 2 volumes. And I'm not going to read from these. When I want to read the Odyssey or the Iliad, I'm going to read from my Penguin editions. And because one, it's all in one volume. And don't get me wrong, these are cool. Because can I read Greek? No, I can't read the Greek. But it's half Greek, half English. And my little nerd self was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. I need it now. I've had these since like 2021. I think they're so cool. I really think they're cool. I wonder if my dad would like these. Let's set these aside for Dad. I'm going to get them off my shelves because I'm not going to read them. The copies that I'm going to read from and annotate moving forward, I have those copies already. Chariot on the Mountain by Jack Ford. Never read it. This was gifted to me in 2019, and I'm just not going to read it. And if I do, again, I'll get a Kindle and put it on the Kindle to save space. This is historical fiction taking place 2 decades before the American Civil War, and story about a young slave woman and the family that she is enslaved to. So I actually deeply studied the American Civil War in university, and so that's one reason why I can gravitate toward those type of narratives. But again, because I know a lot about the American Civil War, as I said, I studied it, and so I like to kind of read those kind of stories and see how accurate or inaccurate they are. But if I want to read it, I'll get the Kindle and purchase it again. I don't have any problem doing that. But the likelihood that I'm going to purchase any of these books again is, I would be surprised. Ugh. Okay. None of This is Serious by Catherine Pasifka. Okay. She's a borderline millennial. She's an older Gen Z, I think, but borderline millennial. She's a zillennial. I'm a younger millennial, by the way. People don't. I had that existential realization that I'm a younger millennial. I relate more to Gen Z than I do to the older millennials and younger X's. But this young woman this was her debut novel. Somehow I think related to Sally Rooney through marriage, I want to say. And so this has that kind of Sally Rooney millennial vibe to it. And I realize one of my best friends in the whole world sent me an audio message. I cannot wait to finish recording these videos and listen to it because we send each other like 7 to 9 minute voice messages. And it's amazing. It's a podcast. It's amazing. And she lives in California, so this is how we keep in touch. And it's like she never left. And I just realized I'm not going to read this book. And if I read this book, I'm going to hate it. So there is a person whose review of this book that I watched who is a way nicer reviewer than me, and they hated it. So I realized, oh, yeah. Let me not waste my time. And I'm not going to read a book knowing that I'm not going to like it just to do a hate review on it. And some people would say, well, you did that with Sally Rooney. You knew you were going to like it. I still gave it a chance. I still gave it a chance. And now that I really know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm not doing that. And again, if I read a book and unexpectedly end up not liking it, like Earthlings, which I'm unhauling, I'm going to do an honest review, because sometimes you just can't be sure. Sometimes you're going to pick up a book and think you're going to like it, and you're like, I hate it. Earthlings. Long story short, Earthlings, didn't like it. I have a recent review on this. Disappointment, because I liked Convenience Store Woman. This book, gotta go. I will never read this again. It was mildly traumatizing. Like, it was the second half of it. I didn't need to read some of that. I just didn't need to read some of that. Also, one of my there's a comment on my review of this, and she made a good point. I forgot who, but she said that the first half and the second half aren't cohesive. They feel like two different stories, and it's true. There's something that's just off. And the last two, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, which won the Pulitzer. I think this book is overhyped. I read it in 2017, and I was like, I read it during a very stressful time, and I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but it didn't stick with me. And I was like, maybe I'll give it a second chance. My sister then read it, and she was like, this is not that great. It's okay. It's mediocre. And then my sister's best friend read it, and she said the same thing. So it wasn't me. It was the book, and I'm not going to read this again. This is actually from when my sister read the book, and she had tabbed some things. I think my sister and her friend read it at the same time. My sister used my copy. A Long Fatal Love Chase by Louisa May Alcott, who also is the author of Little Women, which I have not read. This one, I think, has the same vibe or inspiration from Jane Eyre, which is my favorite book, which is why I picked it up. But I realized I'm not interested in reading this at all. And I have Little Women, which I feel like if I'm going to read a Louisa May Alcott, I'm going to read that because that's an American classic. But I'm not interested in this. I purchased this in like 2020, 2019, somewhere around there. My ear was itching. I'm just not interested. And again, if I end up feeling interested later in life, I will get a Kindle and purchase them on Kindle to save space. That is what I've unhauled. I gotta clean this up. It's a mess. But that's what I'm unhauling. Probably more to come. And if I have more to come, I will do another video. Because again, these are pending. These over here are pending. And after that, I think I have some down here pending. But these are the books that when I looked at them, I knew they gotta go. Yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. Have you read any of these books? And have you guys also been buying less in general? Buying less, just not buying less books. Not that I purchased a lot of clothes in the first place, but I'm not purchasing. I don't need anything. Man, what a good thing to say. What a blessing to say. There's nothing in the physical that I need as far as material items. I have everything that I need. And that's a good place to be in. And that's a blessing. And, stuff doesn't make you happy. It doesn't. That's why you have the rich and famous. They have everything that they want. Garages full of cars, mansions, multiple properties, they can afford whatever they want and they're not happy. Stuff doesn't make you happy. And we have attachments to stuff because sometimes it may be sentimental or we don't want to get rid of it because we're scared it can't be replaced. But for these books, that's not true. Some of these authors they're almost always going to be in print. Even recently, I went back through my yarn stash again and got rid of 2 more bags of yarn and donated it. So it feels good. Yeah. I'm just doing that around my house. I'm going to go through my kitchen cabinets. I have so many mugs and teacups that I can only drink out of one cup at a time, right? And just that's just where I am, and it feels good. So that's maybe that's the moral of this. Stuff doesn't make you happy. Not saying that there's anything wrong with stuff, like I have there are things that I look at that I own that bring me a lot of joy. And there's nothing wrong, but we live in a culture this it turned into like some type of philosophy. We live in a culture that consumes. I don't think there's anything wrong with purchasing things that bring you joy within reason. We live in a culture, especially in the United States, most people have massive amounts of debt trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? At the end of the day, a car is a car. It gets you from point A to point B. Do you need $100,000 car to do that? No. Now, if somebody can afford it and it's not breaking the bank, that's not my business. It's really not. But, a lot of people are in debt for the sake of appearances. Don't get me wrong. I'm a sports car fanatic, okay? I love engine noise. It gets my adrenaline going. My pulse gets up. But they're just cars at the end of the day. I can admire them, but spending $70, $80, $90, $100,000 because I have a need for speed, probably not the wisest decision. Anyway, oh man, I'm going to sign out. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.